My name is Lucinda Miles, and I never thought I'd see the day when my own daughter would become a stranger to me. I've lived 70 years on this earth, loved deeply, lost painfully, and built my life piece by piece after my husband passed. But nothing, prepared me for the moment I realized my life savings were gone. Not because of a thief, not because of some scammer from the internet, but because of my own blood, my daughter, Harper. I still remember that morning like it's carved into my bones. The sun had just crept over the maple trees outside my little house in Rosewood. I had brewed my usual cup of chamomile tea and was sitting by the window, watching the dew drip from the leaves. That quiet time before the world wakes up had always been my sanctuary. But peace doesn't last forever. Not when life is about to hand you a heartbreak you never saw coming. The phone rang, a cheerful ringtone I had set years ago for Harper. It had been a week since we last spoke, and I answered it with my usual smile. "Good morning, sweetheart," I said. But her voice wasn't soft or loving. It was rushed, distracted. "Mom, I'm in a hurry right now, but I wanted to let you know something exciting. Caleb and I finally booked the venue." I smiled despite her tone. "That's wonderful news, darling. Which one did you choose?" "The Whispering Pines Estate. It's absolutely perfect, just like I dreamed since I was little." I froze. Whispering Pines. The name echoed in my mind like a drumbeat. That place was breathtaking, an old countryside mansion with a lake view, but it was also unbelievably expensive. "Harper," I said carefully, "that must cost a fortune." She laughed, light but nervous. "Don't worry, Mom. It's under control." But something in her voice told me it wasn't. After the call ended, I sat in silence, staring at the sunlight flickering across my kitchen table. That's when the uneasy feeling crept in, the kind that whispers, "Check your accounts, Lucinda." I hadn't done that in a while. I trusted my life was steady. But when I logged into my bank account, my hand began to tremble. The number on the screen wasn't what it should have been. My savings, everything I had set aside for my retirement, my medical needs, my peace of mind was gone. Not a few hundred, not a few thousand. Nearly $50,000. My vision blurred as my heart thudded painfully in my chest. I checked again, hoping I had misread it, but it was true. A transfer had been made just 3 days ago, to Harper's name. My Harper. My baby girl. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind refused to believe what my eyes saw. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she just moved it temporarily. Maybe. But deep inside, I knew. The sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the living room felt deafening. My teacup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, splashing tea across my slippers. I didn't cry right away. I just sat there, numb. When the tears did come, they were slow, heavy, and silent. That evening, I went over to my neighbor, Mr. Rowland's porch. He's been my friend for nearly 30 years, a retired postman with kind eyes and a weathered smile. He took one look at me and knew something was wrong. "Lucinda, you look like you've seen a ghost," he said gently. I told him everything. My trembling hands, the missing money, Harper's sudden excitement about the wedding. He listened quietly, then sighed. "Sometimes, kids make mistakes they think they can fix later. But this is big." I nodded, unable to speak. "She didn't even ask, Roland. She just took it. My own daughter." "Maybe she thought you'd say no," he murmured. "Sometimes love and desperation twist people." His words sat heavy in the air between us. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Harper's smiling face as a little girl, the way she held my hand at the fair, the way she used to leave little drawings on my pillow. How did we get from that to this? The next morning, I drove to her apartment. The drive felt endless, and every red light gave me too much time to think. When I reached her door, she opened it in a rush, wearing a silk robe and a sparkling grin. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "You should have called first," she said, her tone bright but nervous. I looked around the room, designer shopping bags, invitation samples, color charts. The air smelled like expensive perfume and freshly printed dreams. "Harper," I said softly, "we need to talk about something important." Her smile faded. Okay, what is it? I checked my bank account. The silence that followed was colder than winter. Her eyes darted away from mine. Mom, I was going to tell you. You took my savings, Harper. My voice cracked. The money your father and I worked our whole lives for. She bit her lip. I didn't take it, Mom. I just borrowed it. I'll pay you back after the wedding. Caleb and I have everything planned, but things got more expensive and borrowed. I repeated, my voice shaking. Without asking me? Without even telling me? Mom, please don't make this into something huge. You've always said family helps family. I stared at her, this grown woman I once held in my arms, and for the first time, I didn't recognize her. I turned and walked out. She didn't stop me. That night, I sat in my bedroom, staring at the framed photo of Harper and me on her high school graduation day. I had never felt so small, so betrayed. The next day, I went to see my old friend Nora Bennett, who owns a little flower shop downtown. She's the kind of friend who can read your soul with one look. Lucinda, honey, she said softly after hearing everything. You can't let this eat you alive. Harper's made a mistake, but she's still your child. I know, I whispered, but I can't just let it go either. That money was everything I had. I don't even know how to face her wedding now. Nora poured us both tea. Maybe there's a way to teach her what love really means, without losing herself in anger. Her words lingered in my mind long after I left the shop. That night, as the moonlight streamed through my curtains, an idea began to take root. A plan. If Harper thought money could buy her happiness, maybe it was time she learned what true love and true sacrifice really looked like. But I couldn't just confront her with rage. I needed to do it with grace, with the kind of quiet strength that only a mother's heart can hold. So I began to plan my own surprise. Not the kind wrapped in ribbons or sealed with glittering invitations, but one that would reach her heart the way she had once reached mine when she was little, pure, innocent, and full of love. And yet, as I drifted to sleep, I couldn't shake the pain. My daughter had stolen from me. That fact sat heavy on my chest, even as I whispered a prayer for her happiness. I didn't know it yet, but what was coming next would change both our lives forever. Because sometimes life has a way of turning pain into purpose. And I was about to learn that even a broken heart can find a way to forgive, if it's brave enough to love again. The next morning I woke before dawn. My eyes burned from another sleepless night, but my mind was sharper than it had been in days. The sting of betrayal was still there, raw as a fresh cut, yet beneath it something else was forming, a kind of steady calm I hadn't felt since my husband, George, was alive. He used to say, "Lucy, storms don't last forever, but they do clean the air." Maybe it was time to clear the air with my daughter. I brewed coffee instead of tea, kneading the bitterness. The kitchen clock ticked beside me, marking each second like a heartbeat. 50 years of saving, penny by penny, gone in an instant. But maybe, just maybe, this pain had a purpose. I opened the small cedar box where I kept old letters, bills, and notes. Inside were faded photographs, Harper's childhood drawings, and a yellow envelope labeled College Fund. Harper. I ran my fingers over the ink. I remembered the day I started that fund. She was 5, clutching a crayon and promising she'd grow up to make me proud. And she had for so long. Straight-A student, responsible, kind. Until somewhere along the way, something shifted. Maybe I gave her too much comfort. Maybe she mistook sacrifice for an endless supply. When the sun finally rose, I called Nora. "I need your help," I said. She heard the resolve in my voice. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm not ready to confront Harper again, not yet. But I want to see how far she's willing to go. I need to know if there's any guilt left in her heart." Nora hesitated. "Lucinda, you're not planning revenge, are you?" "No," I said softly. "Just truth." That week I kept myself busy, gardening, visiting the library, even volunteering at the senior center, anything to stop my mind from spiraling. But every quiet moment, Harper's voice echoed in my head. "Mom, I'll pay you back." I wanted to believe her. 3 days later she called again, sounding cheerful.
"Mom,
You'll never guess. The dress came in today. I forced a smile into my voice. That's wonderful, sweetheart. You should come see it. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part wanted to run to her and hold her like I used to. Instead, I said, maybe soon, dear. I've got a few errands. After we hung up, I sat in silence. Her excitement was genuine, almost childlike. Could someone who stole from her own mother sound that pure? That night, I wrote a letter, my first draft of what would later become the surprise. My dear Harper, there are things in life money can buy, flowers, dresses, even weddings. But there are things it can never purchase: integrity, peace, and the warmth of a mother's pride. One day, you'll understand what I mean. I didn't send it yet. I just folded it and placed it in my dresser. Days passed. The wedding date drew closer. Every conversation with Harper was laced with sweetness and denial. She spoke about floral arches, photographers' menus. Never once did she mention the money. One evening I stopped by Tessa Clark's bridal boutique. Harper's wedding planner had left me a voicemail by mistake, inviting Mrs. Miles to the final rehearsal. She must have met Harper, but curiosity got the better of me. The boutique was bright and perfumed, full of lace and laughter. Tessa recognized me from pictures Harper had shown. Mrs. Miles. Oh, how lovely to finally meet you. Harper says you're her inspiration. Her words hit me like a punch. Inspiration? My throat tightened. Tessa went on. She's been working so hard to make this wedding perfect for you and Caleb's families. You must be so proud. Proud. That word echoed painfully. I smiled politely, thanked her, and left. Outside, the evening air felt cool and clean. I realized Harper had been spinning a story where everything looked perfect from the outside. But truth hides behind glitter. When I got home, I called Nora again. I know what I'm going to do. Lucinda, I'm not telling her yet, I said. But at the wedding, she'll understand what love really costs. Nora sighed but didn't argue. If anyone can teach that lesson with grace, it's you. Over the next week, I began to move pieces quietly. I met with Mr. Rowland and asked him to deliver something for me the day before the ceremony. I called the church, arranged a small surprise during the reception, and wrote 3 more letters, each sealed, each with Harper's name. While doing all this, a strange peace settled over me. I still ached, but purpose has a way of softening pain. The night before the wedding, Harper came by unexpectedly. She looked radiant, eyes bright, hair pinned up, glowing with that feverish joy brides have. Mom, I wanted to give you something, she said, handing me a small gift box. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved, "Forever your little girl." My heart cracked open. For a moment, I almost told her everything, that I knew, that she'd broken me, that I still loved her anyway. But she was smiling, hopeful, and I couldn't bear to ruin that moment. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging her. I could feel her heartbeat against mine, fast and nervous. She left soon after, promising to call in the morning. When the door closed, I held the bracelet and wept. Later that night, I opened my notebook and added one final line to my plan: let love speak louder than anger. I didn't know exactly how the day would unfold, but I knew it would end with truth, raw and undeniable. As I lay in bed, moonlight pooling on the floor, I remembered Harper as a child again, chasing fireflies in our backyard, shouting, "Catch them, Mommy, before they disappear." Somewhere along the years, my daughter had been chasing her own fireflies, dreams that glitter but vanish when you grasp them too tightly. Maybe tomorrow she'd finally see what was real. Morning came with soft rain, the kind that cleans the world before a big day. I dressed carefully in a pale blue gown, simple but elegant. My heart pounded, not from excitement, but from the weight of what I carried. When I arrived at the venue, Whispering Pines Estate, the sight took my breath away. Lanterns hung from oak branches, flowers framed the lake, and guests buzzed like honeybees. Harper was across the lawn, stunning in white satin, her eyes full of light. She spotted me and waved. "Mom, you made it." I smiled, hiding the storm inside. I wouldn't miss it for the world. She hugged me quickly before rushing off with Tessa to check decorations. I noticed Caleb nearby, straightening his tie. He looked nervous but kind. Maybe he didn't know about the money. Maybe Harper hadn't told him. Mr. Rowland caught my eye from a distance and nodded, the silent sign that everything we'd arranged was ready. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, for love, not revenge. As the ceremony began, violins played softly. Guests rose when Harper walked down the aisle. She looked ethereal, and for a fleeting second I saw the little girl she once was. My chest tightened with pride and pain tangled together. When the vows started, Harper's voice trembled. She spoke of honesty, of standing by each other, through riches and through struggles. Those words cut deep. I reached into my purse and felt the envelope waiting, the letter she would receive later. The rain stopped, and a single beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, falling directly across us. Guests gasped softly. Even Harper looked up and smiled. It felt like George was there, reminding me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength in disguise. The ceremony ended in applause and laughter. Everyone moved toward the reception tent, clinking glasses and taking pictures. I stood apart, watching my daughter glow in her new world. Then came the moment I had planned. Tessa tapped the microphone. "We have a special surprise message from the bride's mother." Harper turned to me, eyes wide. "Mom." I stepped forward, heart pounding. The letter in my hand felt heavy as stone. I wasn't angry anymore, just ready. But that, my dear, is where the story truly begins, because what I said next would shake the entire room and change my daughter's heart forever. When I stepped up to the microphone at Harper's wedding, I could feel every heartbeat thudding in my ears. The soft murmur of guests quieted until the only sound was the wind rustling through the oak leaves. My daughter stood a few feet away, her smile frozen, her hands clutching her bouquet a little too tightly. I looked at her, really looked. Beneath the perfect curls and flawless makeup, I saw the same child who once wrapped her tiny arms around my waist and said, "Mommy, I'll never hide anything from you." I took a breath and let my voice carry through the air, steady but trembling with age and truth. "Today," I began, "I stand before you not just as the mother of the bride, but as a woman who has seen the best and the worst of love. I've learned that love isn't just about what we give others, it's about what we're willing to lose for the right reasons." Guests leaned closer. Some smiled, expecting a sweet speech. But a few noticed the weight in my tone. I continued, "My daughter, Harper, is radiant today, stepping into a new chapter of her life. And I want to share something about love, trust, and what happens when both are tested." Harper's eyes widened slightly, confusion flickering across her face. Caleb, standing beside her, looked at her, then at me, uncertain. "I've spent my life saving little by little for security for the future. But sometimes the future comes faster than we expect," I said softly. "And sometimes the people we love most take from us not out of greed, but out of fear. Fear that love won't be enough without a grand show." The crowd shifted. A ripple of unease moved through them. Harper's fingers tightened around her bouquet until her knuckles turned white. I smiled faintly and set the microphone down on the stand. But what matters, in the end, is forgiveness. Because love without forgiveness isn't love, it's just pride in disguise. Then I stepped away, leaving the words to sink into the air like rainwater soaking into dry soil. The guests clapped, hesitantly at first, then warmly, as if unsure what they'd just witnessed. Harper didn't move. Her face had gone pale beneath the makeup. Caleb touched her shoulder gently. "Harper," he whispered, "what was that about?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me as I walked off the small platform and returned to my seat beside Mr. Rowland. He leaned close and murmured, "You handled it with grace, Lucinda." But inside I was shaking. My knees ached, my heart heavy with both sorrow and relief. After a moment, Harper came over. Her smile had vanished completely. "Mom, what was that speech supposed to mean?" she hissed under her breath. I looked at her calmly. It meant exactly what it sounded like. You embarrassed me, she whispered harshly. In front of everyone. I told the truth with love, I said softly. The rest is up to your conscience. She turned and walked away before I could say more. The rest of the evening felt like a dream painted in cracked glass. The music played, laughter filled the air, but an invisible wall had risen between Harper and me. She avoided my eyes. During the toasts, she clung to Caleb and smiled too brightly, as if to prove nothing was wrong. I sat quietly, watching. Nora came over and squeezed my hand. That was brave, she whispered. Maybe too brave, I said. I didn't mean to humiliate her. I just wanted her to remember who she is. Sometimes the truth does that before it heals, Nora replied gently. Later, when the guests began to dance, I slipped outside. The night air was cool and full of crickets. I found myself walking down the garden path toward the lake, where fairy lights shimmered on the water's surface. I sat on a wooden bench and let out a long breath. I didn't hear footsteps behind me until someone spoke. Mom. It was Harper. Her voice was small, almost childlike. I turned to see her standing there, clutching her dress in her hands. Tears streaked her mascara. Why did you have to say that? She asked. Why here, of all places? Because this is where it mattered most, I said. This is the beginning of your new life. And I couldn't let you walk into it carrying a lie. She looked away, her shoulders trembling. You don't understand, Mom. Everything was falling apart. The venue deposit, the catering. I didn't know what else to do. So you took everything I had, I said quietly. I was going to pay you back. Caleb doesn't even know. I just wanted the wedding to be perfect. I wanted you to be proud of me. I stood slowly. Harper, I've always been proud of you. But what you did, it broke something inside me. Not because of the money, but because you didn't trust my love enough to tell me the truth. She covered her face and began to cry. The sound sliced through the night like a wound reopening. I put a trembling hand on her shoulder. It's not too late to make it right. She shook her head. You don't understand, Mom. There's more. It wasn't just the wedding. My breath caught. What do you mean? But she stepped back, wiping her tears quickly. I can't talk about it now. Before I could say another word, she turned and hurried away, her white gown glimmering under the garden lights. I stood there frozen, the words echoing in my mind. It wasn't just the wedding. What else had she done? That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed her words again and again, trying to decipher what she meant. Something about her tone, the guilt, the fear. It wasn't just about the money anymore. By morning, my curiosity had twisted into dread. I called Nora and told her what happened. There's more to this story, Nora. I can feel it. Lucinda, she said gently, you've been through enough. Don't torture yourself. I need to know, I insisted. If she's in trouble, I have to help her. But if she's lying again, my voice trailed off. Be careful, Nora warned. Love can make us blind. Later that day, I drove to Harper's apartment. When I arrived, the place was a mess. Half-packed boxes, open drawers, wedding leftovers scattered across the counter. Harper wasn't there, but Caleb was. He opened the door, surprised to see me. Mrs. Miles, I didn't know you were coming. I needed to talk to Harper, I said. Is she here? He shook his head. No, she went out early. Said she had some errands. Is everything okay? I hesitated. Caleb, does Harper ever talk to you about money? His brow furrowed. Money? No, not really. We've been tight lately with the wedding bills, but she told me her mom was helping. Why? My stomach dropped. She told you that? He nodded slowly. She said you offered to cover some costs because you wanted the wedding to be special. I felt my pulse quicken. Did she ever show you anything? Bank receipts, payments? No. She just said everything was handled. I closed my eyes for a second. Harper hadn't just taken my money. She had built her entire wedding on a lie. Mrs. Miles, is something wrong? Caleb asked gently. I opened my mouth to answer, but footsteps echoed down the hall. Harper appeared in the doorway, her face paling when she saw me. Mom? Harper, I said quietly. We need to talk. Caleb looked between us, sensing the tension. I'll give you 2 minutes, he said, stepping outside. As soon as he was gone, Harper dropped her purse on the couch. Why are you here? I came to see the truth, I said. You told Caleb I helped pay for the wedding. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Mom, please. Don't lie, I interrupted. I just spoke to him. He doesn't know you took the money. He thinks I gave it to you willingly. She covered her face, shaking her head. I didn't want him to think I was desperate. I didn't want him to see me as weak. Harper, lying doesn't make you strong. It just builds a cage around your heart. She looked up, tears filling her eyes. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did, I said softly. And now you have to decide how to make it right. You can't build a marriage on secrets. She turned away, whispering, You don't understand, Mom. There's still something I haven't told you. My pulse quickened. Then tell me. She hesitated, then whispered, If Caleb finds out, he might not marry me at all. Before I could respond, the door opened again and Caleb stood there, his face pale. Find out what, Harper? Harper froze. The air between us turned to ice. The silence that followed Caleb's question was heavier than stone. Harper stood there frozen, her lips trembling, her eyes darting between him and me as though trying to find an escape. I could hear the sound of her breathing, short, sharp, panicked. Harper. Caleb's voice was low, but it carried that quiet edge that comes when love collides with doubt. What is it you don't want me to find out? Harper started, but no sound came out. Her throat tightened. Tell him, I said softly. You owe him the truth, Harper. She turned to me, eyes flashing with hurt. Mom, please not like this. Then how? I whispered.
When?
After it destroys everything. Caleb's confusion deepened. Will someone please tell me what's going on? Harper clasped her hands together, trembling. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she said. The wedding, it was supposed to be perfect. But things spiraled. The money ran out, and the vendors were threatening to cancel everything. Caleb frowned. Money? I thought everything was covered. It wasn't, Harper cried. I took care of it. I just didn't tell you how. I could see the realization dawning on his face. His voice dropped. What do you mean, how? Harper's tears spilled over. I took it from my mom. The words hung in the air like thunder after lightning. Caleb blinked, disbelief twisting his expression. You what? I didn't steal it, Harper said quickly, stepping forward. I meant to put it back, I swear. I just needed it for a little while. I thought once we got the wedding gifts and started saving again, I could return it. But then everything kept getting bigger and more expensive, and… Caleb ran a hand through his hair, pacing. You took your mother's savings without asking? It wasn't like that, she insisted. I was desperate. I wanted everything to be perfect for us, for you. He turned to me, searching my face. Mrs. Miles, is this true? I nodded slowly, my throat too tight for words. For a long moment, none of us spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of traffic outside and the ticking clock on the wall. Caleb finally broke the silence. Harper, you lied to me. You lied about the money, about where it came from. You even let me thank your mom for something she didn't do. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't want to lose you. He stared at her for a long time, then said quietly, You didn't have to buy my love, Harper. I loved you before all this. But now I don't even know who you are. Her knees gave way, and she sank onto the couch, sobbing. I took a step forward, my heart aching for her even as I felt the sting of truth. Caleb, I said softly, she's made terrible choices. But please remember, love can grow again from honesty if you give it a chance. He nodded faintly, his voice low. I just need time to think. He grabbed his jacket and walked out, the door closing gently behind him. The sound echoed like a verdict. Harper's sobs filled the room. I went to her, sitting beside her quietly. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, I've ruined everything. I placed a hand over hers. You can still make things right. But you have to face the truth completely. She wiped her eyes. There's something else, Mom. I didn't just use your money for the wedding. I used part of it to pay off Caleb's debt. I froze. His debt. She nodded weakly. He lost his job last year and didn't tell me until months later. He had medical bills from his father's illness, and we were drowning. I thought if I fixed it, if I handled everything, he wouldn't feel ashamed. I stared at her, my mind spinning. So, you took my savings to protect him? Yes, she whispered. I thought I was saving our future. My heart twisted with conflicting emotions, anger, sorrow, and something like compassion. My daughter wasn't greedy. She was foolishly loyal, driven by love but blinded by pride. Harper, I said softly, you can't build love on secrets. Even when your heart is trying to protect someone, lies poison the roots. She looked at me, eyes red and swollen. I thought I was being strong. Strength isn't hiding the truth, I said. It's facing it. The next few days passed in silence. Caleb didn't call. Harper stayed with me, too ashamed to go back to their apartment. She barely spoke, barely ate. Each night, she sat on the porch with a blanket, staring into the distance. On the third night, I found her there again, wrapped in her robe. The stars were dim behind a veil of clouds. Mom, she said quietly, I keep replaying everything. The look on Caleb's face when he found out. The disappointment in your eyes. I don't know how to fix this. You start by being honest, I said. Go to him. Tell him everything about the money, about the debt, about why you did it. She shook her head. He'll never forgive me. Maybe not right away, I said. But he deserves the truth. And so do you. She looked down, her voice trembling. And what about you? Can you forgive me? I took a deep breath. I already have. Her eyes filled with tears again.
Why?
After everything? Because I'm your mother, I said. And love doesn't stop when it hurts. It just changes form. That night, for the first time in weeks, Harper slept peacefully. And I stayed awake, praying silently that Caleb would find room in his heart for forgiveness too. 2 days later, she decided to visit him. She dressed simply, her makeup gone, her hair tied back. When she turned to me before leaving, she looked more like the little girl I remembered than the woman who had planned a lavish wedding. Wish me luck, she said softly. You don't need luck, I said. You need honesty. She smiled faintly and drove away. Hours passed. The sky grew darker, rain tapping gently against the windows. I waited, my hands folded, heart heavy with hope and dread. When my phone finally rang, I jumped. It was Harper. Her voice was shaky. Mom, can you come?
Please.
Caleb wants to talk to you. When I arrived, the apartment was quiet. Caleb sat on the couch, his expression unreadable. Harper stood beside him, her eyes swollen from crying. I told him everything, she said.
Caleb looked up at me.
Mrs. Miles, I don't know what to say. I can't believe she went through all that for me. I nodded slowly. She made the wrong choice for the right reason. That's still wrong, but it's also human. He took Harper's hand gently. We'll pay you back every cent. It'll take time, but we will. I smiled faintly. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the lesson. He nodded. She's lucky to have you. Harper wiped her tears.
No, imblesa.
And I promise, Mom, I'll make this right. I hugged her tightly, feeling the tension melt away, at least for that moment. But deep inside, a small unease lingered, something in Caleb's eyes. Gratitude, yes, but also guilt. Later that night, after I got home, I couldn't shake that look from my mind. His expression when Harper mentioned the debt, it wasn't surprise. It was recognition. He knew. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, the rain still whispering against the glass. My reflection stared back at me, older, wiser, but weary. Something's not right, I murmured. I thought about Harper's confession, the missing money, Caleb's reaction. There were still gaps that didn't fit together. And then it hit me like a gust of cold air. If Caleb already knew about the debt being paid, Then maybe he also knew where the money came from. My chest tightened. Had he let Harper take the blame for something he helped cause? I rose from my chair, the teacup trembling in my hand. Dear Lord, I whispered. What if she wasn't the only one? The days after Harper's confession were quiet, too quiet. The wedding was over, the guests had left, and the house that had once echoed with laughter now felt hollow. Harper stayed at home, barely speaking, while Caleb returned to work, leaving long hours where he could think or hide. I tried to keep the routine, keeping tea warm, lights soft, and the quiet alive, but inside, I felt a storm brewing. Something about Caleb didn't sit right with me. I replayed his expression over and over, the brief flicker of recognition when Harper confessed. It had been subtle, almost imperceptible, but I had seen it. And I couldn't shake the suspicion that Harper wasn't carrying the full weight of the story alone. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the rain tapping gently against the window. Harper had gone to bed hours ago, tears still staining her cheeks, and I poured myself a cup of chamomile tea. I stared at the steam curling into the air, thinking of the trust that had been broken and wondering if it could ever be repaired. Then the phone rang. I answered immediately, expecting Harper, but it was Caleb. Mrs. Miles. His voice was low, hesitant. Can we talk? Privately? I felt a flicker of unease, but nodded. Come over. He arrived 30 minutes later, rain dripping from his coat, eyes dark and unreadable. He didn't sit immediately, just stood in the doorway, looking like he was fighting with himself. Sit, I said quietly, gesturing to the chair across from me. He did, hands folded tightly in his lap. I need to tell you something about the money. I stiffened. Go on. He exhaled, the tension palpable. I knew Harper took it before she even told me. I didn't stop her because I didn't know how. My hand froze around the cup. You knew? Yes. His voice was barely a whisper. And I didn't stop her because I didn't want her to be ashamed. I thought if I helped behind the scenes, I could make everything right without hurting her. I blinked, trying to process. You helped her?
Yes.
Some of it, he admitted. I had savings I could contribute. I used it to cover a portion of the wedding bills and some of my debt, so she wouldn't have to borrow so much from you. My stomach twisted. So, she wasn't the only one? He shook his head. I didn't want you to know. I wanted her to face the truth and learn responsibility, but I also wanted to protect her. I thought if I quietly fixed it, it wouldn't break her. I felt the air go out of my lungs. The revelation was almost worse than the theft itself. Harper had carried the blame alone while Caleb had quietly manipulated the situation behind the scenes. I wanted to be angry at him, but instead, a deep sorrow settled over me. Do you understand what you've done to her? I asked softly. You've made her feel guilty for months, thinking she was alone in this. And now you expect her to forgive you. He looked down, shame flickering in his eyes. I thought it was right. I wanted to protect her, protect us. I didn't realize how much it would hurt her and you. I could barely breathe. The betrayal wasn't Harper's alone. It was layered, hidden behind quiet intentions and half-truths. That night, I went to Harper's room. She was sitting on the bed, knees drawn up, staring at her hands. Mom, she whispered, voice trembling.
You sat beside her.
Harper, there's more you need to know. She looked up, fear in her eyes. What is it? I took a deep breath. Caleb, he knew before you told him. He helped cover part of the debt and some of the wedding expenses without telling you, and without telling me. Her body stiffened.
What?
No, that can't be true. It is, I said gently. I just spoke with him. Harper's tears started again. Why didn't you tell me? He thought he was protecting you, I said softly. But in reality, he made the choice for you, and that's what's hurting the most. Her hands covered her face. I trusted him. I thought he was my partner. And all this time, he kept secrets from me. I held her close. Love is supposed to be honesty, Harper. What you feel right now, that betrayal, that shock, that's life teaching you the cost of hiding the truth, even when it comes from someone you love. She sobbed, shivering in my arms. I don't know how to face him, Mom.
I don't even know if I can.
You will, I said quietly. But first, you need to understand why you feel this way. Not just anger or hurt, but fear. Fear that love isn't enough without trust. That's the lesson hidden inside all of this. The next day, Harper decided she needed to confront Caleb. I went with her, not to interfere, but to provide support, to make sure she didn't crumble completely under the weight of her emotions. They met in their apartment, the air thick with tension. Caleb stood by the window, looking out, but not speaking. Harper's hands shook as she held mine, seeking courage. "Caleb," she said, voice cracking, "we need to talk." He turned slowly. "Yes, we do." She took a deep breath. "You knew about the money before I told you. You helped cover the expenses. And you didn't tell me, or even my mom." His face went pale. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "Right thing," she yelled, tears streaming. "You made me think I was the only one responsible. You let me suffer alone while you quietly fixed everything behind my back." "I didn't want you to feel ashamed," he said softly. "I wanted to protect us. I thought it was the best way." She laughed bitterly. "Protect us? Caleb, that's not love. That's control. That's betrayal disguised as kindness."
His jaw tightened.
"Harper,
No.
you don't get to speak right now," she said. "You've built this whole life on secrets, and now you expect forgiveness? How do you think that works?" I watched her, heartbreaking but also proud. She was finally voicing the hurt that had been caged inside her for weeks. Caleb swallowed hard. I didn't realize." "You didn't realize?" she screamed. "Do you even know what it feels like to carry guilt for something you didn't even fully understand? Do you know how it feels to wake up every day wondering if your mom will ever forgive you?" He flinched, the weight of her words settling on him. I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered. "I know," she said, softer now, her voice trembling. "But you did. And I don't know if we can go back. I don't know if I can trust you again." The apartment was silent except for her sobs and the quiet ticking of the clock. I felt the ground shift beneath me. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about trust, love, and the fragile truth of human hearts. Suddenly, Harper's phone buzzed. She looked at it and paled. "What is it?" I asked. She swiped the screen, and her face went white. It's a bank alert." I felt my stomach drop. "What happened?" She whispered, voice shaking. "Someone withdrew more money from my account." Caleb's eyes widened.
What? How?
Harper's hand shook as she scrolled. "It's not from me. And
I don't know who did it." My heart sank.
This was no longer about past mistakes. This was escalating. Someone else was involved. Someone was manipulating everything Harper had worked for. The three of us stared at the screen, the weight of the new revelation pressing down like a storm cloud. And in that moment I realized the battle had just begun. Harper's life, her marriage, and her trust, all of it, was on the line. And the person responsible was still out there, hidden in plain sight. The moment Harper realized her account had been drained, a cold fear gripped us all. I could see the panic rising in her eyes, that same panic she'd felt months ago when she first borrowed from me. But this was different. This wasn't a desperate choice made in love or pride. This was something calculated, something sinister. "Mom, what do we do?" Harper's voice quivered. "We find out who did this," I said firmly. "We don't panic. We act." Caleb, for the first time that evening, stepped forward. "I'll call the bank immediately. We'll trace every transaction. Whoever did this won't get away." Harper nodded, but didn't move. Her hands trembled as she held mine. I can't believe this is happening again. After everything, why would anyone target me?" I hugged her tightly. People take advantage when they see weakness. But right now, Harper, the only weakness is fear. Don't let it control you. We spent hours on the phone with the bank, scrutinizing every transaction, pulling up emails, checking every notification. And then we found it, a transfer that didn't belong to Harper, Caleb, or me. Someone had been siphoning money from her account for months, moving it slowly, carefully, so that no one would notice until the balance was nearly gone. Harper's voice broke as she whispered, "It can't be, it has to be someone I know." I knew that look in her eyes. The same one she had when she finally realized the money she stole from me had consequences she hadn't anticipated. That same mix of disbelief and betrayal. I took a deep breath. Harper, think. Who has access to your personal information? Your passwords, your accounts, your life. She went pale. It could be. Caleb frowned.
Who?
Who could do this?
Harper shook her head.
I don't want to say it. I don't want to believe it. I waited, letting her gather courage. Finally, she whispered, "It's my wedding planner.
Tessa.
She's been stealing from me this entire time." Caleb and I froze.
Tessa?
The woman who had been so friendly, so helpful? The one Harper trusted to make her dream wedding perfect? How do you know? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Harper swallowed hard. The invoices, they didn't match. Some of the vendors I thought were paid were actually unpaid. And when I confronted her about the discrepancies, she laughed. She said, "You'll never notice until it's too late." I felt my blood run cold. A person who had been close, who had earned Harper's trust, had been manipulating her all along. She hadn't just taken money. She had preyed on my daughter's ambition, her desire for perfection, and her need to impress Caleb. "I should have seen it," Harper said, burying her face in her hands. "I trusted her blindly. And now everything is in jeopardy. My savings, the wedding, Caleb, and I don't even know if I can forgive myself." I placed my hands on her shoulders. "Harper, listen to me. This isn't your fault. You made mistakes with love and trust, yes, but that doesn't make you weak. You were honest, eventually. Tessa was the one who chose deceit from the start." Caleb shook his head, running a hand through his hair. "I can't believe this. That woman, she's been using us. All of us. We need to act fast. If she's still siphoning funds, we have to stop her before it's too late." Harper nodded. I want to press charges. I want her held accountable. I can't let anyone else be hurt by her lies." I felt a surge of pride and sorrow all at once. My daughter, finally standing tall despite all the betrayals and mistakes, ready to face the world. But the truth of Tessa's betrayal cut deeper than any money could. Over the next day, we gathered evidence, printing invoices, screenshots of transactions, and emails. Harper's hands shook the entire time, but her resolve grew. Caleb was meticulous, scanning for any anomalies. And I stayed beside her, offering guidance and strength, even when my own heart ached for the innocence she had lost. Finally, armed with everything, Harper confronted Tessa at the boutique. I accompanied her, standing silently at the edge, letting her take the lead. "Tessa," Harper said, her voice trembling but firm, "I know what you've done. All the missing funds, the fake invoices, the manipulations, everything. You've betrayed me, my family, and the trust of every person here." Tessa's eyes widened, but then a cold smirk crossed her face. "Oh, Harper, you're finally realizing the consequences of your naivety. You really thought you could plan a perfect wedding without consequences. You've stolen from me," Harper shouted, tears running down her cheeks. "And now you're going to face the law." Tessa laughed, but her confidence faltered. "You don't have proof," she said. Harper held up the folder with every email, invoice, and screenshot. "I do. And Caleb can verify everything. This ends now." For a moment, the room was silent. Tessa's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of fear. She realized she had been caught. I stepped forward. "Harper, take a deep breath.
Stay calm.
This is the moment truth wins." Tessa's eyes darted to me, then to Harper, and I could see panic take over. She knew she had underestimated us. Finally, Tessa stammered, You can't do this. I run this business." Harper's voice was steady now. "Not anymore. You've been exposed, and justice will follow." As Tessa was led out of the boutique, the weight on Harper's shoulders seemed to lift slightly. But even in that moment of victory, there was a lingering ache, the realization that trust can be fragile, that betrayal can come from the people you least expect. Later that night, Harper sat at the kitchen table with me. Mom, I don't know how to process all of this. The wedding, the money, Tessa, everything feels like a storm I can't escape. I poured her a cup of tea. Storms are meant to shake us, Harper. But they also clear the air, reveal what matters, and teach us who we can truly rely on. She nodded slowly. I guess I see that now. But I still feel guilty for everything I did to you, Mom. I never should have taken your savings. You've learned, Harper, I said softly. And that is more than many people ever do. You've faced mistakes, lies, betrayal, and yet you still have the courage to make things right. That is what matters. She reached across the table, holding my hand tightly. Thank you, Mom, for always being there, even when I made the worst choices. I squeezed her hand. I will always be here, no matter what storms come. But as I watched her, I felt a gnawing unease. Tessa was gone, yes, but the depth of betrayal, the hidden layers of deception, hinted at more. And in the shadows, I could sense that the real challenge was not over. Someone else, somewhere, had set this chain of events into motion. And I knew, deep in my heart, that the next revelation would be even more devastating. The days after Tessa's exposure were tense, but quieter. Harper and I tried to rebuild what had been broken, the trust, the calm, the sense of safety that had been stolen along with the money. Yet even as we slowly stitched the pieces of our lives together, I could feel a lingering shadow. Something about the way Tessa moved, spoke, and laughed in front of Harper made me uneasy, even when she was no longer in our lives. There was more behind her schemes than a simple theft. I watched my daughter every day, noting the subtle tension in her shoulders, the flicker of worry in her eyes whenever her phone buzzed. She was trying to move on, but deep down, she was still haunted by the memory of betrayal. And I knew that the storm wasn't truly over. One evening, Harper and I sat together in the living room, sipping tea. The rain tapped softly against the window, the sky a slate gray. She looked at me, hesitating, as though she wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. Mom, there's something else, she said finally. I felt my stomach tighten. What is it, Harper? It's Caleb, she whispered. I think he's hiding something from me. My hand froze midair, the cup trembling. What makes you say that? She looked down, twisting the napkin in her hands. It's small things. Little inconsistencies in his stories, things he says about his debt, about payments he made. And now, with Tessa gone, I can't shake the feeling that he knows more than he's telling me. I leaned back, processing the words. I had trusted Caleb's intentions, assumed he was sincere, and even forgiven his hidden role in covering the expenses. But if Harper's intuition was correct, if he truly was hiding something, then this would change everything. Harper, I said slowly, sometimes we see only what we want to see. But sometimes our gut knows more than our eyes. If you feel this way, you need to confront it, carefully but directly. She nodded, tears brimming. I don't know if I'm ready to face the truth. What if it destroys what we have? Then at least you'll know, I said gently. And you can rebuild from there. But you can't live in doubt forever. The next day, Harper called Caleb, asking him to meet her at the apartment. I insisted on going with her, not to intervene, but to ensure she had support. When we arrived, Caleb was already there, looking tense, as though he had been expecting the confrontation. Harper, he said softly, what's this about? She took a deep breath. I need to know the truth, Caleb. About everything, the money, the wedding expenses, the debts, and anything else you haven't told me. His eyes flickered, hesitation shadowing his expression. I've already told you everything, Harper. Have you? She challenged. Because now, after everything with Tessa, I feel like there's more. Something you're keeping from me. I trusted you, Caleb. I believed you were honest. And I need to know, are you? He looked at me briefly, then back at Harper. Harper, I did what I thought was best. I helped with the money, yes. I tried to protect you. But his voice faltered. I didn't tell you everything. There's more. Something you need to know about Tessa and about why she had access to your accounts in the first place. Harper's eyes widened.
What?
What do you mean? Caleb took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly. Tessa wasn't acting alone. There's someone else, someone who gave her access, someone who's been manipulating this from the start. And I didn't know how to tell you. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Harper's heart pounded, and I could see the fear rising behind her wide eyes. Who, Caleb? She whispered. He looked down, avoiding her gaze. It's my brother, Dominic. The words hit like a thunderclap. Dominic, the man I had met at Caleb's family gatherings, the quiet one who always lingered in the background. I had never suspected him. Harper's hand flew to her mouth, disbelief etched across her face. My brother, she stammered. He did this? Yes, Caleb said quietly. He gave Tessa access to siphon funds, set up fake invoices, he orchestrated the thefts to cover his own debts. I found out only recently, after noticing irregularities in our own accounts. I confronted him, he denied everything. Harper sank into the couch, trembling. All this for money, she whispered. All this lies. All this betrayal from someone I thought was family? Yes, Caleb said, his voice heavy with guilt. And I didn't know how to protect you without revealing what I knew. I thought I could handle it myself, but I was wrong. I placed a steadying hand on Harper's shoulder. You've been brave enough to face Tessa. Now you must face the next truth. It's painful, yes, but it's the only way to find justice. For the next several days, we meticulously gathered evidence against Dominic, connecting emails, transfers, and communications between him and Tessa. Each revelation cut deeper, the betrayal more personal. Harper wept openly at the thought that someone from Caleb's own family had plotted against her, someone she had once smiled at, trusted, and even liked. Finally, the day came when we confronted Dominic. I went with Harper, standing strong beside her. Caleb stayed in the background, giving her space to speak. Dominic met us in his apartment, feigning surprise. What's this about? He asked, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Harper, shaking but resolute, held up the folder of evidence. It's about everything, Dominic. The money you stole, the lies you told, the manipulation. It ends today. He laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. You think you can prove anything? I've covered my tracks. Tessa did all the dirty work. You'll never have enough. I stepped forward, my voice calm but cutting. Enough. Harper has everything she needs. Every transfer, every invoice, every email. You underestimated her. You underestimated us. Dominic's face hardened, and he lunged at the folder, but Harper held it tightly, her grip unwavering. It's over, she said, her voice strong, shaking with both fear and newfound power. For a long moment, Dominic's anger and pride clashed with Harper's determination. And then, finally, he slumped back, realizing defeat. There was no denying the evidence.
No escape.
Harper exhaled, tears streaming down her face, but this time mixed with relief. Justice had been served, at least for now. But as we left Dominic's apartment, a chilling thought lingered. His motives were clear, yes, but the depth of deceit, the planning, and the cold calculation had suggested there could be more. Someone else, perhaps, pulling strings behind the scenes, waiting to strike again. Harper looked at me, her voice quiet but resolute. Mom, I think the real storm isn't over yet. I nodded.
No, Harper.
But we're stronger now. And when the next storm comes, we'll face it together. That night, I sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. Harper slept peacefully in her room, finally free from Tessa's shadow, and yet, in my heart, I knew the coming days would test us even further. Some battles end with justice, some with heartbreak, and some reveal truths we weren't ready to see. And the truth, I realized, was about to hit harder than anything we had faced so far. The air in the apartment felt heavier than ever as we walked out of Dominic's place. Harper's hands were still trembling, clutching the folder of evidence. I could see the mix of relief and exhaustion etched across her face. She had confronted betrayal head-on and won, but the emotional cost was immense. "Mom," she whispered, voice tight, I thought this would make everything go back to normal. But it feels like the deeper we dig, the more lies we uncover." I nodded slowly. Truth has a way of revealing itself in layers. Every time we think we're finished, there's another layer waiting. The important thing is that we're ready for it now. Caleb, walking a few steps behind, finally spoke. "We've caught Dominic, yes. But the planning, the manipulation, it doesn't end with him. Someone else had to coordinate all of this, to guide Tessa, to make it so seamless." Harper's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Caleb said gravely, "there's a mastermind we haven't identified yet. Someone with a motive, someone who knew the family's finances, someone who could orchestrate every step without leaving a trace. Dominic was just the puppet." I felt my heart tighten. This was no longer about money or a stolen wedding fund. This was about power, manipulation, and someone exploiting the most intimate corners of our lives. Harper had already suffered enough, and the thought of more betrayal made me ache. We decided to regroup at our home, to strategize. I made tea, placing the steaming cups on the table, while Harper and Caleb sat opposite me. The weight of the revelations hung in the room, thick and suffocating. "We need to be methodical," I said, trying to keep my voice steady.
"No rash decisions."
"The person who orchestrated this isn't reckless. They planned this carefully. So we plan carefully too." Harper nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes, Mom. I can't let anyone hurt me or anyone else like this again." "And I'll help," Caleb said, his voice resolute. "We'll track every connection, every account, every communication. Whoever did this, they won't get away." The next few days were a whirlwind of investigation. Harper and Caleb worked tirelessly, reviewing financial statements, emails, and phone records. I assisted, quietly supporting them, making sure they stayed focused and didn't let anger cloud their judgment. Each day revealed new layers of deceit. Dominic had not acted alone, and the patterns were deliberate. One evening, Harper came to me, her face pale. "Mom, I think I've found something. Something big." I leaned forward, concern flooding my chest. "What is it?" She handed me a tablet, showing an encrypted email trail. "Look at this." Tessa wasn't just working for Dominic. She was following orders from someone who had access to Caleb's family accounts before any of this happened. Someone who knew exactly how to manipulate us from the start. I studied the emails, my breath catching. Every message was meticulous, every instruction calculated. And at the center of it all was a name we had never suspected. Evelyn, Caleb, and Dominic's distant aunt. Harper gasped. "Aunt Evelyn? But she's always been so sweet, kind. How could she do this?" "Appearances can be deceiving," I said softly. "The most dangerous people are often those we trust the most. Someone who loves money, control, who sees chaos as opportunity." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I never suspected her. She's always been part of the family. Always helpful. Always smiling. And all along, she was orchestrating everything." "Yes," I said. "She used Dominic as a pawn, Tessa as a tool, and left Harper to suffer, so she could manipulate outcomes to her advantage." Harper's hands clenched into fists. "I can't believe this. After everything, all the betrayal, the lies, the theft, it's been her all along." "I know," I said, pulling her into a hug. "But now we know, and knowledge is power. The next step is bringing her to justice." The following day, we decided to confront Evelyn. Harper's resolve was fierce. Caleb was determined. I felt a protective fire ignite in me, knowing that after months of heartbreak, deception, and betrayal, it was finally time for truth to triumph. Evelyn greeted us with her usual warm smile. "Harper."
"Caleb."
"And Mrs. Miles, what a surprise. How lovely to see you all." Harper's voice cut through the air, unwavering. "Don't act surprised, Aunt Evelyn. We know what you've done." Evelyn's smile faltered, just for a moment. I don't know what you're talking about." Harper held up the folder, her hands steady. All the emails, the transfers, the instructions to Tessa, the manipulation of Dominic, it's all here. You orchestrated everything, and now you can't deny it. Evelyn's eyes widened, her composure cracking. This is impossible. You can't prove any of it. We have proof, Caleb said, his voice cold. Every step you took is documented. Every action leaves a trace. The law will decide, but your time of hiding behind smiles is over. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Evelyn's expression shifted from disbelief to fury, her eyes narrowing. You think you've won, she spat. But you have no idea the lengths I can go. This isn't over. I felt a shiver run through me. Her words were not a threat, they were a promise. And in that instant, I realized that while justice could be sought legally, the emotional battle, the storm of trust, betrayal, and survival, was far from finished. Harper's voice was steady, but I could see the tremor beneath the surface. It is over, Aunt Evelyn. You've been exposed. And now you'll answer for everything. Caleb stood beside her, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. We'll make sure you can't harm anyone else. Ever again. Evelyn's glare lingered, and then she turned abruptly, leaving the apartment in a rush. The final confrontation had been verbal, tense, and fraught with emotion, but it had happened. For now, the storm had paused. Harper collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. Mom, I don't know how to feel. Relief? Victory? Or fear? All of it, I said softly. You've survived betrayal after betrayal. You've faced deceit, manipulation, and lies. And now you've faced the person at the top. But the storm isn't over. This is just the calm before the final reckoning. She rested her head on my shoulder, tears finally drying. I feel stronger, though. Somehow. Yes, I whispered. Because you face the truth, Harper. And facing the truth is the strongest weapon we have. Tomorrow we finish this. Tomorrow, we see justice fully served. As I looked out the window, the city lights reflected in the rain-soaked streets, I felt a quiet strength settle in my chest. The battle had been long, and the betrayal deep, but we were ready for the final chapter. The storm had paused, but its arrival was inevitable, and we would be ready. The weeks following Evelyn's exposure were surreal. Harper, Caleb, and I spent every waking moment ensuring the final pieces of justice fell into place. Evelyn faced legal action. Dominic and Tessa's misdeeds were fully documented, and for the first time since the chaos began, I could feel a measure of calm returning to our lives. But even in that calm, the emotional wounds lingered, raw and tender, demanding attention before they could fully heal. Harper had grown quieter, thoughtful, carrying herself with a new depth. Her laughter returned slowly, hesitant at first, then genuine. Caleb stood faithfully by her side, steady and supportive, though the tension between them was still visible. Trust, once fractured, could not be rebuilt overnight. And I, watching both of them, felt the weight of months of heartbreak slowly lifting from my chest, replaced by pride and awe at my daughter's courage. One afternoon, Harper approached me in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea. Her eyes met mine, filled with both gratitude and lingering guilt. "Mom," she said softly, "I don't think I ever truly thanked you for everything. For believing in me, even when I didn't deserve it. For standing by me, for giving me the strength to face all of this." I smiled gently, pressing a hand to hers. "You don't need to thank me, Harper. That's what a mother does. But you've learned the hardest lessons in the shortest time. You've grown in ways I never imagined." She shook her head, tears brimming. "I feel older, wiser, and exhausted. But also free, in a way I never thought possible." I nodded. Freedom doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it, acknowledging it, and moving forward with the truth in your heart. Caleb entered the kitchen then, carrying a stack of unopened mail. His eyes softened as he looked at Harper and me, and for the first time in months, I saw the weight of guilt begin to lift from his shoulders. "Everything's finally being settled," he said quietly. The accounts, the debts, all of it. And Harper, I want you to know I never meant for any of this to hurt you. I only wanted to protect you, even if I went about it the wrong way. Harper reached for his hand, a small smile forming. I know now, Caleb.
And
I forgive you. Not because it was easy, but because holding on to bitterness isn't what I want for my life. I watched them, a deep sense of relief washing over me. Love had survived betrayal, deceit, and hardship. It had been tested in ways that could have destroyed it, but instead, it had grown stronger, tempered by truth and accountability. That evening, I took Harper aside, and we walked together through the quiet streets near our home. The air was crisp, filled with the faint scent of rain-soaked earth. The city was calm, unaware of the battles we had fought and won in silence. Mom, Harper said, voice barely above a whisper. How do you forgive so easily? Even when people hurt you deeply? I looked at her, the glow of streetlights reflecting in my eyes. Because holding on to anger is like carrying stones in your heart. It doesn't punish the person who wronged you, it only weighs you down. Forgiveness is freedom. And sometimes, it's the only way to protect the people you love, including yourself. Harper nodded slowly, absorbing the wisdom in my words. I think I understand now. It's not about excusing their actions. It's about choosing not to let them control your life anymore. Exactly, I said, smiling. You've already learned that in the hardest way possible. The following week, Harper and Caleb invited me to their home, a small gesture of reconciliation and celebration. They had decided to start fresh, hosting a modest gathering with close friends and family, a symbolic second chance at the life they had almost lost to deception and greed. The day of the gathering, I stood in their living room, watching Harper move gracefully, her smile genuine, her laughter filling the space with warmth. Caleb was at her side, helping, listening, supporting, and I realized how resilient love could be when nurtured with honesty and trust. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Harper turned to me. Mom, this is all thanks to you. Not just for standing by me, but for teaching me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. I reached out, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. Harper, courage is also knowing when to ask for help, and when to lean on the people who love you. You've done both, and that's why you're standing here today, stronger than ever. Caleb joined us then, wrapping his arms around Harper. And thanks to you, Mrs. Miles, he said, his voice low, for keeping us grounded. Your wisdom, your patience. It's saved us all in ways I don't think either of us can fully express. I laughed softly, feeling the warmth of family and forgiveness settle over me, like a gentle blanket. I only did what any mother would do, I said. But you've all done the hard work of facing the truth, and now it's time to live without fear. That night, as the gathering wound down and the last of the guests departed, I found myself alone in the living room, gazing out the window at the city lights. Memories of the past months played like a silent film in my mind. Harper's stolen savings, the lies, the confrontations, the heartbreak, the betrayals, and finally, the victories. I whispered into the quiet room. Life will always test us. People will hurt us, deceive us, and challenge our faith in love and trust. But what matters is that we rise. We face the truth. We forgive, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to move forward. I thought of Harper, of Caleb, of the strength that had been forged in pain. I thought of every sleepless night, every tear shed, every moment of doubt. And I realized that the greatest victories are often invisible, carried in the resilience of the human heart. Finally, I rose from the chair, walking to the balcony. The wind was cool against my face, carrying the distant hum of the city below. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past lift slightly with each exhale. I've watched my daughter grow, stumble, and rise again, I whispered to the night. I've seen love tested and truth revealed. And now I know, no matter what storms come, hope, courage, and forgiveness will always guide us home. And as I gazed at the horizon, the first stars of the evening twinkling faintly above, I whispered the words that had carried me through every hardship, every betrayal, every heartbreak. Even in the darkest nights, the heart that loves truly will always find its way to the light.